Okay, so this is going to be my account of what occurred on Sunday, December 17th, 2017, in the lunar cycle Misamiko Komiatos. And this was the day of our annual Audubon Christmas Bird Count in Lethbridge. I've been participating in this count for several years, and it's always crazy, retarded windy outside when this happens. It's a dangerous beacony wind, and I've never had a bird count day without the wind. This one was particularly difficult though, because of the weird warm season we've had. The areas where you might normally find the birds easily weren't there. Like this site, normally there's just a small water crag, so yeah, you can come here and find lots of geese. On this day, I found 208 geese that I counted here, Canada geese. In previous years, I might find 2,000 geese at this little location here just upstream of the Highway 3 bridge. So low numbers this year, and with the wind, I was expecting there was going to be a lot of birds that were hunkered down that were going to be hard to find, and that certainly turns out to be the case. Now, in the morning here, this was at dawn, of course, and this is the second kind of goose site where I normally count a lot of geese, again in the thousands normally, but on this day, just 408 at this particular site just next to the high level bridge. I had a student with me, my regular Sunday phenology student that came with me for about an hour and a half in the morning. We walked just a little ways past the bridge here and to where we could see and count the birds up this way. Here you see a couple of golden-eyed ducks, and there was also a couple back at the a few actually back by the high level bridge. So all in all, 5 golden-eyed ducks, 2 males, 3 females. You can also see there's a few geese up this way along the shoreline. I think I counted 62 in all. And this is about as far as we went before we started turning around on our morning loop and heading back toward the north, but on the west side of Spopeakamy Pond instead of just along the river. And there, in the kind of bullberry and currant thickets, where we usually can find many of the smaller passerine type birds, the only one here that morning were these house finches. I think altogether between the ones that were in the bushes right there, accessible to us that I'm filming, and some that were up on the slope, I counted about 11 house finches, but nobody else. I was expecting to maybe find some dark-eyed juncos, maybe some tree sparrows, you know, somebody else other than, not that nothing against the house finches. I'm glad we saw them. Might have not even bumped into them with how brutally windy the morning was. So that was our last site while I had my student. Then I returned and I went to the land base just north of Bridge Drive, where I located 2 flickers. You see one here. All the flickers that I saw this day were male flickers, and altogether, how many did I see? 4 of them. 4 male flickers. 2 of them were in this area north of Bridge Drive along the river bottom, and then there were 2 that were way up by in the river bottom. I also started seeing at this point, started seeing some porcupines. So this was the first guy I came across, and he was just hunkered down, kind of sleeping on what was probably an owl's nest there in the crook of one of the trees. And then heading back across the street by the golf course parking lot here, there was another small porcupine. Now these may have been animals that I actually trapped and released, because I did release a porcupine in the area not too long ago. And he was a smaller porcupine like this. It might have even been this guy. He wasn't very aware of me the whole time I was there, and I spent a couple of minutes with him, and standing really not very far from him. 2 paces or 3 paces, I would have been right on top of him. But I watched him for that bit, and he never noticed that I was there, even when I walked past him to move on. He never noticed me. And what he was doing there was he was just picking up twigs from the spruce trees, and he was eating the needles off of them. I didn't know that was something that the porcupines enjoyed, so this was, for me, something that I learned on this day was that if you leave some spruce twigs down on the ground, that the porcupines might like to eat those needles off. And they probably have that same kind of, for them, they probably got that same kind of lemony taste that the new spruce twigs have for us during the summer, when they send out those shoots that are so delicious and soft. If you ever tried them. Moving on, I tried to cover some of the coulee slopes, and there I began seeing lots of little tracks from weasels. I never really appreciate how many weasels are in the area until it snows, and then you can start seeing the tracks. So this is up one of the trails going under the high level bridge, just south of the high level bridge. And then I continued along. I tried to stay off of the human trails because, of course, a lot of the animals avoid being near them, right? So here I'm taking walking some of the deer trails that go up the coulee slopes, up and around the coulee slopes. And I appreciate those areas more than what they've done on those, widening those human trails anyway. Here's some more weasel tracks. It seems that they like the more narrow trails too. And it's a fact, that when you widen these tracks out and make them like sculpted, as the city does, for people to easily walk on, you're putting a lot of animals in danger because they don't normally have that kind of open, especially little insects that try to pass through there. It really creates quite a challenge for them. You can see here the difference between coming off of a north-facing slope that's all snowy and entering onto a south-facing slope where there's no snow at all. The real dramatic difference between the temperatures of the coulee slopes. Now getting toward the Whoop-Up Bridge, and I start coming across. I've came across magpies. Well, all the way along I've encountered magpies. I think I've counted 9 of them, and I would have probably counted a lot more if the day had been better. But here is a little Miipamaki, a black-capped chickadee, who was singing, and as I watched, I was able to spot a few more of them. I think altogether, black-capped chickadees, I counted 5. 3 of them here, and then 2 of them in the forest main back by Spobekini. And by this time, I'm starting to get worn out. Like, I've been hiking for, at this point, probably 4.5 hours, carrying a 30-pound rucksack full of camera equipment that I never use, that I brought just in case I came across a really interesting species that's unexpected. You always want to have something so that you can get some photo evidence if you come across someone like that, which is always a possibility of. But I wasn't coming across anybody. In fact, there's a lot of birds that I missed this day. A lot of birds that I know are around, including like bald eagles and gray partridges and dark-eyed juncos, and there was probably somewhere some red poles and certainly downy and hairy woodpeckers, and yeah, there was a lot of species that went unrecorded this day, just because I think of the wind. So that was my bird count. Nothing spectacular, but I took some video and I thought I'd share it for the record.